Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. In the spirit of advice, we'd like to offer some perspective on a frequently discussed or frequently asked about issue, which is following the book and the sunnah as opposed to following one of the madhahib, the schools of law. And we want to frame this question as it relates to the narration of Hadith and the way that Fiqh developed historically. And understanding these 2 points is very important. We should always, as students of knowledge and as Muslims in general, as people in general, to the extent that we can, have an appreciation for history and where we are in time, what we have received from our tradition, and what we are able to contribute to be passed down to the generations after us. So we want to break this down according to 3 different brief discussions. We'll just give a short overview that will be beneficial, inshallah. And again, the broader topic that we're speaking on is narration and derivation, meaning narrating hadith al-riwayah and deriving branch issues in fiqh at tafri'. There's a intimate relationship that is between these 2 approaches or these 2 subjects within Islamic studies. And the 3 areas we want to look at are fiqh and its history and its methodology. And then after that, we want to look at the madhahib as institutions. And after that, literature and how literature in various fields of Islamic studies is something that we have to be fully aware of when we are engaging in it. So when we look at the history and methodology of fiqh, we have to understand that the codification of fiqh begins before the collection of hadith. It predates it. And that's something that's obvious to anyone that is familiar with the generations of scholars. And this is why one of the essentials for any student of knowledge is understanding what is called the tabaqat, the different generations and levels of scholars. And that goes for every field within the Islamic sciences. So when you look at the fuqaha, the jurists, And when we say that, we're speaking about al-mujtahidun, al-mustaqillun, the independent jurists, meaning those whom the madahib are named after them and their peers. Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he passed away in the year 150 after the Hijrah. Imam Malik, rahimahullah, passed away in 179. Imam al-Shafi'i, 204. Imam Ahmad, 241, rahimahumullah. So all of the imams of fiqh and their peers whose madhahib died out, by the middle of the 3rd century, they're all gone. And when you compare that to the leading scholars of hadith, Al-Shaykhan, the two sheikhs, Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Al-Bukhari, he passed away in 256. Muslim, 261. Abu Dawood, 275. At Tirmidhi, 279. And Nasa'i, 303. And Ibn Majah in 273. So if you look at those dates, the latest we have is An-Nasa'i in 303, rahimahumullah. All of them passed away in the latter half of the 3rd century. So what that means is the activity of collecting hadith, that was something that was at its most active during the 3rd century, whereas fiqh was being codified in the 2nd century. So this is very important. There's two different things that are going on. But what we have to understand from that fact is that the activity of collecting hadith was done in the service of the fuqaha. Out of all of the subjects that we study in Islam, they have a hadith. There's a hadith of aqeedah. There are a hadith of akhlaq and adab, which is character, morality, and manners. There's a hadith al-fada'il and al-manaqib, of virtues and superior traits. But the focus that we see for the muhaddithun, despite the fact that they were comprehensive in their work, where they were the most critical and the most meticulous was in ahadithul ahkam, those ahadith that are about legal rulings. There's a profound statement made by one of the students of Imam Malik, rahimahullah, whose name was Ibn Wahab. Ibn Wahab, rahimahullah. He said that, لولا أن الله أنقذني بمالك والليث لضللت. If it wasn't for Allah saving me with Malik and Layth, and that's a reference to Al-Layth ibn Sa'd, who was a mujtahid mutlaq, but his madhab was never passed down to us due to the fact that his students did not codify it. So he said, if it wasn't for Malik, for Allah saving me through Malik and Layth, I would have gone astray. I would have been in error. قِيلَ لَهُ كَيْفَ ذَلِكَ. So it was said to him, how is that the case? How can you be go astray? And he made an incredible response to that questioning. قال أكثرت من الحديث فحيرني. I got a lot of hadith. I gathered and collected an abundance of hadith to the point where I was confused. أكثرت من الحديث فحيرني. And then what? How was he saved by Malik and Layth? فكنت أعرض ذلك على مالك والليث فيقولان لي خذ هذا ودع هذا. So I used to go and present that, meaning I would get all of these hadith and present them to Malik and Layth, and they would say to me, take this and leave that. That's a beautiful statement from Ibn Wahb that shows the relationship of the fuqaha operating in the 2nd century to the collection of hadith before it became codified in the 3rd century. And just to elaborate or to demonstrate the point further, that the imams of hadith of the 3rd century, the later 3rd century, how they were in the service of fiqh with their collecting of hadith and criticism of hadith. We have here, this is at Tirmidhi, Sunan at Tirmidhi, and more properly Jami' at Tirmidhi. And in Kitab al-Ilal, he makes again a very important statement. At the very beginning of Kitab al-Ilal, the book of Ilal, of defects in hadith, he said, جميع ما في هذا الكتاب من الحديث فهو معمول به وقد أخذ به بعض أهل العلم ما خلا حديثين. حديث ابن عباس أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم جمع بين الظهر والعصر بالمدينة وبين المغرب والعشاء من غير خوف ولا سفر ولا مطر. وحديث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا شرب الخمر فاجلدوه فإن عاد في الرابعة فاقتلوه. وقد بينا علة الحديثين جميعا في الكتاب. So at Tirmidhi rahimahullah, he said, all of what is in this book from hadith, and here he's not talking about all of the hadith literally, but ahadith al-ahkam, the ahadith that are related to legal rulings, which shows us how much attention and care that at Tirmidhi was giving to ahkam. So he said all of the hadith in this book are put into practice. فَهُوَ مَعْمُولٌ بِهِ. They are acted upon. And some of the people of knowledge, meaning the people of fiqh, the fuqaha, some of the people of knowledge have used them, except for two hadith. The hadith of Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhuma, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam joined between Dhuhr and Asr in Medina, and also joined between Maghrib and Isha without any fear or travel or rain. And also the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said, when someone drinks wine, then whip them, right? The had for drinking. And if he returns to it a fourth time, meaning he's now had the had established on him 3 times, and he's done it again, so it's now he's going to have to be punished for the 4th time. So if he returns for a 4th time, then execute him. That's a hadith, and these are both authentic hadith. And then he said, and we have already clarified the defect in the 2 hadiths altogether in the book. Now, when he talks about an illah, a defect, he's not talking about the authenticity of these hadith. The hadith are authentic, sahih. But what is it that made at-Tirmidhi make that statement? It's that they're not acted upon. Now, of course, there's something to be said about the first hadith about joining the prayers without any fear, without any travel, and without any rain. But the majority of the ulama, they say that joining between prayers is only valid with travel. So that hadith is not acted upon by the majority of the fuqaha. That indicates something about the hadith. And likewise, the hadith about executing the person that drinks wine, if they are taken for the 4th time, that hadith is not acted upon. There's ijma', there's consensus of the scholars that that hadith is not acted upon. And the consensus is an indication of naskh, of abrogation. So the defects within these hadith have nothing to do with the sanad, with the chain of the hadith, but everything to do with amal, with practice. So I want us to take a moment and reflect on the significance of that reality. There's nothing defective about the chains of those hadith. But what is being paid attention to is that the fuqaha did not act upon them. So that gives us, again, a very brief and very summarized overview of the history of fiqh in terms of when it developed, when compared to the collection of hadith, and when that developed, when the scholars of hadith, the imams of hadith, were most active, and the methodology of the scholars. The fuqaha, when they look at a hadith, they, of course, examine the chain. The chain is important. They examine the text of the hadith, the matan. But what is of primary concern to the faqih is not the sanad, which is what studying the links of a chain, which is the series of narrators, and then the variant wordings of the matan. That's not the primary concern of the fuqaha. The primary concern of the fuqaha is amal, the practice that is derived from that hadith, or whether or not the hadith was even practiced to begin with. And that explains the statement of Ibn Wahab. Okay? That is the perspective of the faqih when he's looking at the hadith. So authenticity is going to be based on the practicality, or to put that in a better term, the fact that the hadith is practiced by the ulama. This is something that we know of the madhab of Imam Malik rahimahullah. He has the principle of amalu ahl al-Madina, the practice of the scholars of Medina, and also, even though Imam Malik is most known for that, even Abu Hanifa rahimahullah had a similar understanding when he was looking at the authenticity of a hadith in terms of extracting a ruling from it. He's going to compare the hadith to the practice of the ulama, the practice of the scholars in his area. And even Imam al-Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad had consideration for practice, which is why at-Tirmidhi rahimahullah makes that statement about those two hadith that he mentions in his Jami'. So that's the perspective of the faqih. Authenticity and acceptability of a hadith is due to practice. Whereas according to the muhaddithun, the scholars of hadith, their specialization and their consideration and care is given to the sanad. It's given to the chain. So what is important to them is ilm al-rijal and ilm al-jarh wa ta'dil. It is knowledge of narrators and knowledge of praise and criticism of those narrators. And then, of course, also there's the study of variant wordings within the text of a hadith. All right, but their area of specialization and what they give priority to, what the point of their study and research is from a completely different perspective than the faqih. Now, that's not to say that the chains of hadith, the authenticity or weakness of a chain, is not important to the faqih. It is. However, the faqih is adding another dimension to the way that he's dealing with the hadith that is something that distinguishes him from the muhaddith. So, inshallah, that distinction is clear. And we will continue on part 2 with the madhahib as institutions. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaykum.